Across the country, with this high inflation, people are struggling. For the price of food is up, housing is up, and even trying to get transportation is a struggle with high interest rates. But even worse, with this high inflation, it looked like it could be a plot to take people's homes. It's bad enough that people can't afford a home with these high interest rates and high inflation costs of the price of homes, but existing home buyers are seeing high taxes because of this high inflation.
Owners here in Michigan can expect to see the highest jump in their property taxes in nearly 30 years.
While the value of your property may not have risen, the taxable value of your home has gone up automatically with inflation.
And much of this attack on homeowners is on the local level, that with their homes even being paid off, they're losing their homes for as little as $8, $58, and these are paid off homes.
The Michigan Supreme Court decision could end a years-long legal battle for a man who lost his home over an $8 debt.
Is now fighting for their own home this evening that they could now lose over just $58.
They're selling the homes for the tax debt and keeping the rest of the equity. Now, with these paid off properties, what make it even worse by this billing era that they're doing on these properties, because of course, if you own your home straight out, if you knew about that debt, you would pay the $8 that you owe or the $58. And in places like Chicago, there are many that are activists that are accusing the local municipality and the Chicago government of stealing people paid off homes under the guise of affordable housing.
They need to abolish TIF money. They need to abolish this whole affordable housing, which is a money laundering racket. Y'all are laundering money through affordable housing. When people do really are trying to make a change in their communities, you guys don't never know how to give people who come into y'all wards the money to do TIF money to rehab their actual home. So what you'll do is you'll just knock it down for building violations instead of using that TIF money, that's what it's supposed to be for, to help them rehab their homes. So you'll knock it down in the name of building violations for affordable housing, give it to all these white developers that's in here right now, and then they go get this IDA money too. So at the end of the day, they really don't spend no money. And a lot of us don't know about it.
And these homes they're tearing down are paid off. These are senior people, primarily in Chicago, African American, and they're tearing down their homes and they're putting it under the guise of different fines that they had violations and codes, but they're taking the properties and they're not paying these seniors for their properties. And they're doing this on purpose because there's a racket going on. If that home actually had a mortgage, the bank will pay off that home or get that home back. But they're making sure that they're targeted, paid off homes.
What happened between you and the city of Chicago?
Oh, in 2017, the city of Chicago elected officials, the building department, unlawfully demolished my family's property.
More from this story, but if you go to my website, you guys can get a free heart inquiry removal package and you can download it. And we have other packages for purchase to help you remove your negative items for your credit report. I also wrote out my elite credit system. And with this elite credit system, it comes with my credit coaching and AI softwares. And users like Sean have gotten great results. He went from a 612 credit score all the way with his scores over 770. And now his score is at a 803, and all of this within a matter of 6 months. And he worked with me in my business credit coaching program, and now he has business credit for his business. So if you need my help, all these links are in the description of the video and in the pinned comment section.
And
why did they say they demolished the property?
They said building violations, and it's crazy because my mother was fixing up.
Now, this is a story of this young lady by the name of Zoe Lay. Her mother home was torn down. Now, this was a commercial property that they tore down, and they kept the value of that property, and they're getting money for funding to develop this particular area.
It's a commercial property at that. So it's commercial property at the bottom. It's 4 apartments at the top. And my mother was working on it. And how we found out that the building was unlawfully demolished was the electrician. He called. He said, "Hey, Miss Marsh, the building isn't here." And my mother called the city. They had no information.
Now, this action is disturbing and disgusting, because when you have a senior been part of that community all their life and been paying property taxes, especially in Chicago, where property taxes are high, then you turn around and tear down this woman's home, which I'm quite sure she worked and wanted to leave some kind of asset to her children or her grandchildren.
So my mother at the time, she's 73. She's like, "No, they're not, they're not supposed to do that." So she went, down to City Hall. She spoke to the law department. They really couldn't give her any information. But one person in the law department told her to go get a police report. So she did go back and get a police report. And then they told her to file a claim. She filed the claim, and they said that the reason why we weren't paid out was because of building violations. And I said, "Well, where are the building violations? You have to go to buildings court. You have to go through a whole lot of stuff. You just can't knock down a building." And come to find out, my mother was fighting this by herself at that time.
Now, seeing this level of corruption, there's no wonder why the city of Chicago right now is saying they have a budget shortfall of $1 billion, because this type of corruption has been going on area against people of color for years.
Well, just get a lawyer. And in Chicago, they have it where you can't get an attorney. You can't get in the black communities. What they have done is they prey on black seniors. They play on our communities and on buildings and properties that are already paid off.
And as you can see, they purposely are giving her the runaround. Now, the reason why they're doing this is because they want to keep the profits, which these people put out the labor. They're doing it in targeting, like she's saying, African American people, which is totally disgusting. And it explains why a lot of us are now lack of generational wealth to pass on, because you even have cities like this playing games when your actual parents or grandparents did work. But we keep being told, pull yourself up by the bootstraps, and many of us did, but now you're having your wealth stolen from you.
So there was no tenants. They didn't have to take anybody out the building. It was empty.
No, my godfather was living in there. They told him he had 10 minutes to get out, and he's 80.
Jesus Christ.
He had 10 minutes to get out?
10 minutes to get out. And he's 80. Now, mind you, they don't have social media. And then at the time, the only attorneys that you can get for stuff like eminent domain or them stealing our properties is 2. It was 2, and it was Ed Vodoliak and Ed Burke. Now, they both have been convicted of stealing properties. They're were aldermen at the time. So Chicago has a thing that no matter what, you're not going to get no justice. Chicago's one of the most corrupt cities on earth. And they put my mother in the hospital twice and fighting ever since. Now, mind you, while I'm fighting, I'm dealing with this immigration invasion that's coming in. I have other black seniors that are coming down to city council as well, because they're stealing their properties too. And it's only in certain areas. It's in TIF districts. It's tax increment financing. They're supposed to give you money in blighted areas, and predominantly black areas. And they're supposed to help you build your community up. And what they're doing is they're taking the money, we call it a piggy bank, and they're giving it to predominantly white areas and now Hispanic areas.
Now, this is showing you there's funding appointed for those blighted areas, that when these funds are allocated, they come with a racket and a scheme to take these people properties, predominantly African American. They keep these areas blighted and try to shame these areas why there's no economic thriving there, and then maybe why crime is there. Their economics is being blocked on purpose. And banking and other systems that will not give you funding because it's backdoor redlining. And so we can see why certain communities look the way they do.
They're taking our properties. You can't get any help. You can't get any media. And they continue to do this. And they do it. They prey on seniors.
Yeah.
So, when people talk about Democrats, how the democracy and how they care, Chicago different.
And the sad part, it is just not Chicago. There's other states like the state of Michigan where this is not only happening just to seniors, but it's being targeted towards homeowners whose homes are paid off.
In 2014, retired engineer Yuri Raffaelli lost his rental property over an $8.41 tax debt. His Southfield home was seized by Oakland County, put up for auction, and sold for more than $24,000. The county kept the profit.
When government takes an entire house as payment for a tiny debt, that's theft and it's unconstitutional.
And like this attorney is saying, this is very unconstitutional. And with the level of taxation, this is looking to be as predatory. And a lot of these people are being targeted are seniors because those are the ones that were able to complete those 30 years to pay these homes off. And now you have the government coming in, seizing their property and keeping the profits. So where does this even justify that you take the whole property over the $8 debt? Or you keep the whole sale of the property and you get to keep the equity? How is that justice in any type of way? And this is why we have to be careful with taxation. This is why we had the Tea Party and we separated from Britain and had a whole war over predatory taxation.
There's an interesting combination of factors. One, it's highly profitable for counties to foreclose and take all this extra money. We took this case just to protect the property rights of people across Michigan. And ultimately, we want to end this kind of predatory tax collection process across the United States.
We really saw this practice prevalent in the city of Detroit, where you had these homes that was paid off. And because of a tax debt, the whole home was taken, including keeping the proceeds of the sale of the home that satisfied the tax debt, but they sold the home above beyond what was owed in taxes.
My great-grandfather purchased the home.
This house is a link to Jalen Stevens' past, but he's fighting for its future, struggling to pay the property taxes.
I've been risking foreclosure for the last 6 years.
He says his home in East Detroit was overassessed by the city. One study shows nationwide the property tax rate for the least expensive homes is more than double that of the most expensive homes in the same jurisdiction. And those in predominantly black neighborhoods are assessed at a rate 50% higher than white neighborhoods in the same area.
This is a story of structural injustice.
Bernadette Atuahene studies property tax inequity in Detroit.
Since 2009, 1 in 3 homes has been confiscated because of property tax foreclosure. We haven't seen this number in American history since the Great Depression.
Once again, surprise, surprise, this was targeted at a black community where they're being assessed for way more than other homes that are around them or in that neighborhood. And this is purposely done to steal the wealth that his parents and grandparents was able to maintain. And we will see this narrative over and over again, but then you'll have it to be said that people in the black community are not working hard, that everybody else have worked harder when you actually maintain these homes for this many years, this many decades, and by paying the property taxes on that property, you help build that city and that community.
The city of Detroit admits property tax inequity was an issue, but says that's no longer the case.
There is no systemic or systematic overassessment of properties in Detroit.
Detroit's lead assessor, Alvin Horn, says that's because of changes that began 7 years ago.
We have better processes, we have more resources, we have oversight from county and state to make sure that what happened before, that the mistakes of the past never happen again.
Now, my question is, if it was a problem that he's admitting to, that it was 7 years before, what happened to the people who was victimized by that situation? Did they get their homes back? Because at this point, with the high inflation, the property value would have doubled on the way the home would have increased in value. So even if that home was sold and they gave them the going market value of the home of that time, those people got robbed out of wealth that they could have experienced in this market.
We asked for data to support the city's assertion that property tax inequity has improved since making those changes, but so far the city has not provided that information. Atua Hene says that's because the problem still exists.
Now, it's obviously clear that it's no surprise it's still going on, because if they can't provide data showing that it's not going in the same direction, it's because it is. And so you see this benign neglect constantly going on, and why conditions remain the way they do, and why Black wealth cannot be accumulated.
Just last year, she helped 68 homeowners, including Edith Ford, file appeals.
Like, this property tax is sky high.
Edith won hers, and her property taxes are now 15% lower.
I can afford to fix things at my house. I'm saving money where I can pay my own bills.
In fact, all 68 appeals Atua Hene worked on had their assessed values reduced.
Now, thank goodness for the civil rights activist, this nonprofit organization, and with her work that she's helping those seniors, because it would have been no way they could probably maintain and keep those homes if they didn't have her help to reduce the property taxes, especially with many seniors on a fixed income. They cannot afford for their property taxes to go up, along with utilities and everything else around them.
If there isn't a problem, as the city is suggesting, how do you explain that 68 of those homeowners ended up with lower assessed values?
I would say that the process worked. That's why we have an appeals process.
Well, thank goodness this was brought to their attention there in Michigan with their Supreme Court, and these practices have been highlighted, and they rendered a decision in favor of these homeowners.
Decision from the Michigan Supreme Court could have a huge impact for people who've gone through foreclosure.
Yeah, you know, in the past, local governments would just keep any money made from selling foreclosed property, even if that number exceeded the amount of taxes owed. Well, now the courts say the people who lost those properties should get the money.
There's a lot of people that have absolutely nowhere to go.
Thousands of Detroiters lost their homes to foreclosure between 2010 and 2016, the result of being overtaxed.
This is the reason why I'm homeless right now.
And this story now have expanded to show you even a bigger problem that it caused for these homeowners losing their homes. It caused homelessness. So many of these people experience homelessness they never had before because they had a home that was paid off. Just really mind-boggling on how corrupt that a system could be, that they keep beyond the tax debt that's owed, the actual equity of the home, and these people are pushed to shelters and being homeless after they worked for so many years.
Thanks to a recent decision made by Michigan Supreme Court, those affected may now be entitled to a payday.
Anything that's going on will really be beneficial because there are a lot of people struggling. Every little bit will help.
And this should be clear that this is a constitutional violation and issue. And to certain levels that we're seeing through this story, it is definitely a civil rights issue. And it looks like it's targeted and purposely done to some of the most vulnerable people that's there in these communities.
Michigan Supreme Court is now saying their 2020 decision, which prevents the government from keeping money they made from selling foreclosed homes, can now be applied retroactively. This now means that millions of dollars could go back into the pockets of the people who lost their homes because of unpaid taxes. Attorney Christina Martin once fought on behalf of several residents in the 2020 case.
The Constitution says that if the government takes your property, it has to pay you for it. And the government took more than what was owed, and so they have to return that excess money that they took from these people. The government gets to collect taxes, penalties, interest, fees, costs. It doesn't get to take everything left over after that. Local Michigan attorney, because they can help you navigate the system. The law that's on the books right now is really complicated, and I think it raises additional constitutional issues that the legislature really should just fix now.
And as you can see to this story, if you are a person who was victimized by this law in Michigan, you should contact an attorney. They should look at these situations case by case and actually reach out to these people, because if a lot of them experience homelessness, who have money for an attorney? Probably a lot of these attorneys, if they looked at the case, may work it pro bono, but why should people who already been victimized once again have to fight for what was rightfully theirs. And to add on, they missed this boom of inflation actually got more wealth by having and controlling that property, because as this government printed tons of money, it diluted all of our purchasing power, which drove the price of homes up. And these people could have benefited and got more wealth, but they've been robbed of that and the pain and suffering of some of these people being homeless. So this is just showing you and highlighting that some of these racial disparities that's purposely targeted towards the African American community, and now with home prices being as high as they are, high interest rates, it makes it hard for people to even get back in the system to own a home, to have any chance to pass on generational wealth. So if you have any questions or comments, leave it in the comment section. And any questions that you have directly to me, you can go to my website and all your questions go directly to my cell phone. So I hope to see you guys in the next video. Stay tuned.